very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Raisha Saigal. Our cover story tonight. According to reports, China is rapidly pushing the delivery of its J-35A jets to Pakistan in a bid to rearm a defeated Pakistan. Reports say that Pakistan has already dispatched its first batch of fighter pilots to China. What explains this urgency? And is China using Pakistan as a proxy to increase tensions with India? Also on the show, despite facing a global embarrassment, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has promoted Munir as Field Marshal. But tonight we ask, will this appeasement by Sharif towards Munir be enough? And finally, can Trump's Golden Dome provide nuclear cover? Estimated to be around $175 billion, the Iron Dome is expected to be functional by the end of Trump's current term in office. All that and a lot more lined up for you on the show tonight. Let's get you started. With strikes by India exposing the cracks in Pakistan's defences that were built, supplied and managed by Beijing, China is now fast-tracking the delivery of its most advanced war machine, the fifth-generation stealth fighter jet, the J-35A, straight into Pakistan's arsenal, giving defeated Pakistan military new weapons. According to reports, the first batch of J-35A fighters could touch down on Pakistani soil as soon as this year. And Islamabad has reportedly already flown its first group of fighter pilots to China to begin training on the J-35A platform. If true, the timeline by two nations is not just fast and deliberate, it is most importantly strategic. Because the J-35A is no ordinary plane. It's Beijing's second fifth-generation stealth fighter following the J-20, capable of flying 2,400 kilometers per hour. This jet can carry advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles like the PL-15 with enhanced stealth features and intelligence networking. Its design also resembles the American F-35 Lightning II jet. And there's more. China has reportedly created a dedicated export office solely focused on marketing the J-35A, with Pakistan becoming its first export customer. This arms push coincides with an ongoing diplomatic mission as well. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar is currently in Beijing, and he held talks with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi. But what was notable there was that this time, China skipped the red carpet welcome usually reserved for major dignitaries. This shift in protocol, though, has not stopped the Chinese foreign minister from affirming Beijing's firm support for Pakistan's territorial sovereignty. Further, describing the China-Pakistan relationship as ironclad. But Pakistan's ties with China may not be as ironclad as it claims. According to former US National Security Advisor John Bolton, China is using Pakistan merely as a proxy to increase tensions with India on its western front.
I think the risk of increased Chinese influence in Pakistan is very real and very concerning. And the evidence of these Chinese fighters, their effort at a fifth generation fighter, is proof of what's been publicly reported, that Pakistan buys as much as 80% of its sophisticated weapon systems from China these days. That's a real strong piece of evidence of Chinese influence. And I think you might attribute some of the tension here to China, that's using Pakistan as a proxy to increase tensions with India, to put a threat in place on India's western flank.
According to the Joint Center for Warfare Studies, an Indian military think tank, China may have provided critical assistance to Pakistan during the recent standoff with India following the Pahalgam terror attack. The think tank claims that Beijing assisted Pakistan in realigning its satellite coverage over India following the terror attack on April 22nd.
China and Pakistan nexus has moved to a different level. That includes the launch of the satellites of Pakistan for information gained by Chinese, the interlinkage of satellite information exchange between the two countries, export of large number of air defense radars given to Pakistan, as well as the J-10, J-17 category of aircraft, submarines, and whatnot.
The Indian government has not officially confirmed China's involvement, but the timing raises important questions. Because if these allegations prove true, they suggest China may have supplied Islamabad with not just hardware, but real-time intelligence and logistical support as well. With the J-35A jets likely heading towards Pakistan in the foreseeable future, one thing is clear: India will be closely monitoring this development. Regardless of what's brewing between China and Pakistan, India's recent actions on ground and in the skies have unquestionably demonstrated that if it is provoked, the retaliation is harsh and measured. Shifting focus now, last night on the show we told you that Pakistan's Army Chief General Asim Munir has been elevated to the rank of Field Marshal, a 5-star rank not seen in Pakistan since the 1950s. And this comes despite military setbacks against India, including Operation Sindoor and airstrikes on Pakistani military bases. Setbacks that raised serious questions about Munir's leadership. Still, the Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has gone ahead, elevated Munir, rewarded him, appeased him. But the big question is, will it be enough? The last time Pakistan had a Field Marshal was in 1959, when Ayub Khan awarded himself the title while ruling the country. In Munir's case, it was cleared by the federal cabinet. Munir reportedly said, and I'm quoting him here, "It's not a personal honor, but a tribute to the armed forces and the people." That's what Munir said, but we know better. This move comes amid global embarrassment for Pakistan, a country widely exposed as a terror state and now facing cracks in its military credibility. So what does this title even mean? Well, it's mostly ceremonial. Critics have argued the implications of this move. But what about the civil-military balance? What about the operational command chain? And more importantly, what does it mean for the future of Pakistan's democracy? And even in Pakistan, opinions are split on all these questions. As per Pakistani news outlet Dawn, retired Lieutenant General Naeem Khalid Lodi thinks that this could pave the way for a new role, that of the Chief of Defence Staff. Under this, Munir could consolidate even more power. But another former Defence Secretary, Lieutenant General Asif Yasin Malik, disagrees. He says Field Marshal is just ceremonial. The COS remains the top operational post. Ceremonial? Maybe. But political? Absolutely. And then there's the legal ambiguity as well. Pakistan's constitution says nothing about field marshals. According to Pakistan's Article 243, the president appoints service chiefs but not five-star generals. What's more, the 2024 Army Act amendment removed retirement age limits. Yet, this field marshal title comes from a classified rule in the Army Regulations, Rule 199A. According to military sources cited by Dawn, a general officer, whether serving or retired, may be promoted to field marshal, regardless of seniority or post. So yes, this entire move rests on a secretive clause, rarely discussed and never scrutinized. So what's the real message here? This title may not give Munir new battlefield powers, but it does give him strategic weight, more power, more influence within the military, and more clout in politics, and perhaps more control over Pakistan's democratic institutions. Pakistan Senator Mushahid Hussain Saeed described Munir as the pivot of the power structure, more powerful than ever because the civilian government is already weak and divided. But I want to ask you a question. What war did Asim Munir win to earn this title? Was this a gift from the government or an order from Munir himself? In the days leading up to the announcement, the army chief was referred to as Sipah Salar, a commander. The message was loud and clear. The decision had already been made. It's because Pakistan is not a functioning democracy. It's a stuttering oligarchy where power is shared between a fragile political class and a military that never leaves the driver's seat. In a real democracy, the Prime Minister leads. In Pakistan, the military appoints the Prime Minister. So was this promotion just another reminder of who really holds the reins in Pakistan? We've given you the facts. You decide what they mean. In other news, US President Donald Trump has announced a $175 billion missile defense system for the US. It's called the Golden Dome. At a White House press conference, Trump revealed the system, led by top US Space Force general, will be a cutting-edge defense against threats from China, Russia, and other enemies of America.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here in the Oval Office, one of the great places of the world, as we make a historic announcement about the Golden Dome Missile Defense Shield. That's something we want, and Ronald Reagan wanted it many years ago, but they didn't have the technology, but it's something we're going to have. We're going to have it at the highest level.
So what is the Golden Dome? Ordered by Trump in January, it is a vast satellite-driven system designed to track and neutralize ballistic, cruise and hypersonic missiles, even before they leave enemy territory. The Trump administration has remained vague on its plans to manufacture the missile shield that takes inspiration from Israel's Iron Dome. It's not even clear yet what exactly it will look like, but it is believed to have significant differences in scope and scale to Israel's shield. While the Israeli Iron Dome is supposed to protect populated areas from short-range threats, Trump wants to build a space-based missile shield, powerful enough to protect a country 450 times larger than Israel. The next-gen Golden Dome will stop everything from ballistic missiles to hypersonic weapons. So how will it work? The basic idea is that a vast network of satellites will spot launches in real time as early as even during the missile's boost phase. Then, interceptors on land and in space will shoot them down mid-air. Meanwhile, AI command systems will coordinate the whole operation at lightning speed, that too. Simply put, With space-based interceptors and ground defense layers, the Golden Dome will attempt to shoot down missiles during their most vulnerable boost phase. That's when they are easiest to detect. The system will rely on existing tech like THAAD and Aegis, but on a much larger scale. It will plug into NORAD and the wider US missile defense grid. Lockheed Martin's CEO says it will integrate the best of American defense tech, even tackling future threats like AI-powered drone swarms. Who is a part of the project now? Well, Trump has said General Michael A. Gutlin will take the lead. He is the Vice Chief of Space Operations at the U.S. Space Force, and already prominent defense contractors along with technological firms, including Elon Musk's SpaceX, are already competing for the contract in a bid to build the Golden Dome shield, reportedly submitting their proposals directly to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
Campaign, I promised the American people that I would build a cutting-edge missile defense shield to protect our homeland from the threat of foreign missile attack. And that's what we're doing. Today I'm pleased to announce that we have officially selected an architecture for this state-of-the-art system that will deploy next-generation technologies across the land, sea, and space, including space-based sensors and interceptors.
Well, the plan already has potential allies. Trump says Canada has expressed its interest in joining the project, although Prime Minister Mark Carney's office has not confirmed yet. Earlier this month, U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA, released a report about how missile threats to the U.S. homeland will expand in scale and sophistication through the next decade. In the DIA report, America perceives threat from ballistic, long-range cruise missiles and hypersonic missiles launched from air, ground and undersea. The idea specifically mentions countries like China and Russia that have an array of novel delivery systems and can reportedly exploit the gaps in the current U.S. ballistic missile defenses. The report mentions them as the primary threat to the homeland. It also mentions North Korea for successfully testing its ballistic missiles and Iran for having space launch vehicles. It could also use to manufacture a military viable ICBM by 2035 should Tehran decide to pursue the capability. Most of the systems mentioned here have nuclear capable variants. So that's where the Golden Dome comes in. Now, some critics have compared this to Ronald Reagan's ill-fated Star Wars program. But Trump's team insists the private sector and tech breakthroughs today can help overcome past failures. Experts also warn the Golden Dome project will trigger a global arms proliferation, and America's enemies might simply build more missiles in a bid to overwhelm the system. For now, the Golden Dome is one of the most ambitious military defense programs ever proposed. As Trump pushes for congressional support and global partnerships, all eyes will be on how this futuristic shield takes shape at a time of heightened global tensions and ballooning defense costs. With aid reduced to a trickle in the war-torn Palestinian enclave, and Israel carrying out its most fierce and extensive offensive in Gaza, US President Donald Trump is finally putting pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu's administration to wrap up the war in Gaza. There's growing condemnation against Israel's Gaza operation. In Gaza's Deir el-Bala, Palestinians are bringing dead bodies to Al-Aqsa Hospital after deadly Israeli strikes.
We were selling cigarettes and others were drinking coffee, and everything was all right, when all of a sudden a missile hit. It blew the whole place up and the people were scattered in the street. We brought them here.
Israeli military says it has allowed fewer than 100 trucks to enter the enclave after Israeli Prime Minister agreed to lift the aid blockade on Gaza on Monday. However, the UN says that no aid has yet reached, even as Palestinians in the enclave were left waiting for the promised arrival of food.
The biggest challenge that we face is that since the closure, no commercial nor humanitarian assistance have reached Gaza. We have been given for the last 2 days an opportunity to reinstate some of the humanitarian assistance. Yet the challenge that we have is that it's not at a sufficient scale. The trucks that have arrived in Gaza are still within Gaza, but just at the platform at Kerem Shalom. As we speak, none of these aid, that is very limited number of trucks, have reached the Gazan population.
Holding empty cooking pots and pans, men and women are waiting with their children outside a makeshift soup kitchen in Khan Yunis, hoping to receive lunch meals. They fail to receive any form of aid. Among the Gazans, life of thousands of babies is at a grave risk. UN assessment says that at least 14,000, that's the number, Palestinian babies could die in the next 24 hours if aid does not reach them on time.
If I didn't get food from the soup kitchen today, we would have. Yesterday, we did not get food from the soup kitchen, so we slept hungry. If we didn't get food today, they would have slept hungry. This is an ongoing issue for more than a month and a half or 2 months. I wish everyone to stand by us. Our children are dying slowly.
European countries are ramping up pressure on Israel to abandon its intensified campaign in Gaza and let more aid into the war-ravaged territory, where rescuers say fresh attacks killed dozens of people. Well, Pope Leo XIV has appealed for Israel to allow humanitarian aid to enter the Gaza Strip, calling the situation in the Palestinian territory yet more worrying and saddening. Amid the lack of aid and endangered lives in the Palestinian enclave, a left-wing Israeli lawmaker, Yair Golan, condemned Israel's military action in the Strip, saying that Israel should not kill babies for a hobby, sparking a row among Israeli top politicians. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accused Golan, a former major general in the military, of wild incitement against Israeli troops. Let's now tell you what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. As US asset confidence weakens, all eyes are shifting towards New Delhi. What is fueling this investment boom? And why are the world's biggest players betting big on India? Also on the show, from Ukraine-Russia war, we will tell you how Russian President Vladimir Putin has visited Kursk for the first time since claiming to have completely retaken the region. And finally, we'll tell you how India's lion population has risen by a third to 891. Tensions in West Asia continue to rise further. Reports emerging from the United States suggest that Israel may be gearing up for a strike on Iranian nuclear infrastructure. So while Washington continues down the diplomatic path with Tehran, Tel Aviv right now appears to be exploring a very different course. According to a CNN report, Israel has ramped up activities that resemble preparations for a military operation targeting Iran's nuclear capabilities. And these developments emerge at a time when the Trump administration is aiming to close a nuclear deal with Tehran that's over its nuclear program. The report further claims that these moves by Israel may not only affect Washington and Tehran's diplomatic channels, but might also ignite a broader regional conflict across West Asia. The report claims although Israeli leadership has not made a final call, uncertainty clouds the situation. Some US officials believe internal divisions in Israel could still restrain military action against Iran, while others believe the odds of an Israeli airstrike have surged majorly in recent months. Potential Israeli strikes reportedly depend on the outcomes of the nuclear talks between Washington and Tehran. If Tel Aviv concludes that Washington's deal will not fully eliminate Iran's nuclear potential, then Israel could take matters into its own hands. American surveillance has reportedly picked up Israeli military movements and intercepted communications, fueling that belief that plans for a strike are under serious consideration in Israel. Reports note that the transfer of aerial munitions and the conclusion of a major air exercise as indicators of offensive military planning. Last month, on the directions of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Air Force conducted drills rehearsing for another round of Iranian missile attacks on Israeli air bases. The CNN report further states that all these steps by Israel might still be a bluff designed to perhaps rattle Iran into compliance without actually pulling the trigger. US President Donald Trump has made it very clear that he is willing to use force if diplomacy fails. He has previously warned Tehran of military consequences should it defy US efforts to reach a nuclear accord. According to the report, Israel does not have the capacity to destroy Iran's nuclear sites or nuclear program without American help. And that includes mid-air refueling and bombs that could penetrate Iranian nuclear facilities lying deep underground. Prior US intelligence assessment indicated that Israel could use either military aircraft or long-range missiles to strike Iran's nuclear sites. However, these assessments concluded the strikes will have little to negligible impact. Incidentally, in April, the New York Times also reported that Israel planned to strike Iranian nuclear sites as soon as May, but that plan was thwarted by Trump, who opted in favor of negotiating a deal with Tehran. Russian President Vladimir Putin traveled to the western Kursk region for the first time. That's since Russian forces pushed back Ukraine's incursion last month. And speaking with the regional authorities and volunteers, Putin acknowledged that despite the so-called liberation, conditions remain difficult across the border zones.
The situation in frontier zone of Kursk region remains difficult even after the liberation from enemy, over wide of Putin speaking. We also talked about it with acting Kursk region governor Alexander Yevseyevich Kinstein, but you know it better than anybody else. In general, all the Kursk region faced in some ways the problems which are typical for frontier zone. Everybody, including those who lives in Kursk city, faced these problems and hit now a rough patch.
During his tour, Putin visited the construction site of the new Kursk 2 nuclear power plant located in the city of Kurachatov. According to the Kremlin, the Russian president also held a meeting with the governor as well as the heads of local municipalities and volunteers who have been helping those affected by the incursion. Putin accused Ukrainian forces of turning Orthodox cathedrals into makeshift fortresses and called for a full restoration program. He also announced ongoing financial support, which will continue till mines are cleared and families can return. Meanwhile, across the border in Ukraine, the battlefield rages on. Russian Defense Ministry released drone footage of what it claims was a tactical missile strike, and that too on a military training facility in Shotska, located in Ukraine's Sumy region. Ukraine confirmed the strike, saying 6 soldiers were killed and at least 10 were injured. Russia, however, claimed a much higher toll, saying up to 70 were killed in that attack. Well, as fighting grinds on, diplomatic activity to end the war seems to have also picked up recently. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky reportedly signaled openness to meeting Putin directly. Ukraine's foreign minister confirmed Kyiv's willingness to explore talks, even through third-party mediation. This follows US President Donald Trump's phone call with both the leaders. Experts warn that the US may lack any kind of leverage and that Trump's push may be more about disengaging than peace building, with continued military action on both the sides and diplomacy hanging by a thread. The path to peace still remains uncertain. Well, global money is on the move as investor confidence in U.S. assets weakens. All eyes are now on Asia. And at the heart of this shift is India. New Delhi is perhaps emerging as a rising star. So what is fueling this investment boom? And why are the world's biggest players betting big on India? Well, foreign investors pumped $2.7 billion into Indian equities in the first half of May alone. This marks a sharp turnaround after investors sold billions worth of equities in the first 3 months of 2025. April was the turning point, with net purchases in the green. Experts attribute this shift to improving domestic fundamentals, cooling inflation, and expectations of further rate cuts by the Monetary Policy Committee. Well, a key driver behind the foreign inflows is SEBI's proposed reforms, which are aimed at reviving global interest in Indian government bonds. The regulator has suggested easing KYC timelines, waiving trading and demat accounts, and also offering flexibility. Experts see this as a strong signal, aligning India's bond market with global norms. On equities, FIIs are placing their biggest bets on private banks, citing clean balance sheets, digital transformation. India's inflows surge comes amid broader shifts in global capital flows. Well, Moody's recently downgraded the U.S. sovereign rating, triggering a rise in 30-year Treasury yields to the highest since November 2023. Meanwhile, China saw a net capital inflow of $17.3 billion in April, including $10.9 billion in bond investments. With the dollar weakening and the U.S. fiscal deficit ballooning, experts expect a structural move towards emerging markets like India, China, Korea, and Taiwan. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is raising a warning about Syria. He says Syria could be weeks away from a fresh civil war of epic proportions and could even face a potential collapse. Speaking at a U.S. Senate hearing, Rubio blamed the resurgence of the Islamic State extremist group in areas outside the Syrian government's control, as well as Iran, behind its potential downfall. Rubio also suggested that the country may be splitting up and called for support to the transitional leadership in Syria.
The bad news is that the transitional authority figures, they didn't pass their background check with the FBI, okay? They've got a tough history and one that we understand. But on the flip side of it is, if we engage them, it may work out, it may not work out. If we did not engage them, it was guaranteed to not work out. In fact, it is our assessment that, frankly, the transitional authority, given the challenges they're facing, are maybe weeks, not many months, away from potential collapse and a full-scale civil war of epic proportions, basically the country splitting up.
By saying this, Rubio basically defended U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to lift sanctions of Syria and to engage with the government in Damascus. Last week, Trump made himself clear that he wants to reboot ties between Washington and Damascus. He even met Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara, who led the rebel offensive that overthrew Bashar al-Assad back in December. Signs that U.S. indeed wants to engage with Syria rather proactively. And how have other countries reacted to the U.S. move on Syria? Well, European Union countries that had already suspended economic sanctions on Syria recently gave the green light to lift all restrictions as well. Taking to X, top EU diplomat Kaja Kallas wrote, I'm quoting her here, "We want to help the Syrian people rebuild a new, inclusive and peaceful Syria. This move would unfreeze central bank assets and help reintegrate Syrian banks to the global system, a decision hailed by the Syrian ministry as well." However, Rubio's recent statement on Syria comes after a series of bloody attacks on the Alawite and Druze minorities in Syria, capping a brutal civil war that began in 2011. Meanwhile, Rubio also acknowledged concerns about Syria's direction in Israel, which has kept pounding military sites in the neighboring country. Rubio's statement has only emphasized the fragility of Syria's interim government amid high chances of it descending into chaos and teetering on the edge of a new war yet again. Meanwhile, Syria's newly appointed defense minister hosted a high-level delegation from the Turkish Ministry of Defense in Damascus. The meeting signaling Turkey's continued influence over Syria's transitional government and raising concerns about Ankara's role in supporting HTS, a group with historical ties to terror outfit Al-Qaeda, all leading to the fact that something might be brewing. With Rubio's remarks underscoring fears that without global engagement, Syria could meet the fate of an Iraq or Libya. What lies ahead? The coming days will reveal more. The world's richest man, Elon Musk, is planning to cut down on his rather generous spending for his political allies. This would mark a clear U-turn from his previous acts of funding campaigns, big and small alike. So, has this been a long time in coming? Maybe. If you recall, Musk spent a record amount of money on the 2024 election to help get Trump elected as the President of the United States of America for the second time. And I'm talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, as much as over $290 million. Not only did Musk back Trump, but also his other favored congressional contestants. Musk-linked groups shelled out more than $20 million for preferred contestants. However, even as Musk's backing a political campaign was a big push, not all guaranteed success. Early last month, Republicans lost a major Wisconsin judicial race in which Musk was both a major funder and a campaign issue. Previously, he reportedly committed to putting $100 million into political groups controlled by Trump. Clearly, Musk is someone who puts his money where his mouth is, but of late, there seems to be a rethink, a shift, if you will, in his strong political advocacy. The Tesla CEO for now seems more focused on advancing his role as a businessman, as he remains committed to staying on as Tesla's CEO for the next 5 years or so. So far, for Musk, balancing his role at the automaker and the Trump administration has been nothing short of a tightrope walk. But now he wants to take a break from all that, a decision that could have major implications in next year's US midterm elections, given that Musk has established himself as a star donor.
And I'm not someone who's ever committed violence, and yet massive violence was committed against my companies, massive violence was threatened against me. Who are these people? Why would they do that? How wrong can they be? They're on the wrong side of history, and that's an evil thing to do.
And from the sound of it, the decision of dialing back on his political spending supposedly comes from a personal space, an issue of sorts. However, Musk's shift in priorities as an investor also stems from mounting pressure that Tesla is facing in terms of falling sales and stock value, all of which is now forcing him to take a step back from politics. Well, truth, they say, is stranger than fiction. A Dubai-based brokerage firm has proven just that. It vanished overnight, without a trace, taking with it millions of dirhams from investor funds, of whom several are Indians who invested thousands of dollars in the firm. A report in the Khalij Times claims that Gulf First commercial brokers, which operated out of 2 offices in Capital Golden Tower in Dubai's Business Bay, abruptly shut down last month. The firm had roughly 40 employees who were reportedly engaged in cold calling prospective investors and promotion foreign exchange investment as well. Once a bustling office space, it's now reduced to a bucket with a mop and a black garbage bag, suggesting that the shop has been shut in a hurry with all the investor money gone, just like that. What explains this? What happened? Well, nothing really save this is a classic case of financial fraud, and without leaving any trace whatsoever, with the firm misplacing or rather stealing a huge amount of money, including life savings of several investors. In UAE, financial scams are nothing new and follow a similar pattern of earning investor trust, convincing them to invest in dubious platforms through cold calls. Even as police complaint has been filed, it's highly uncertain the investors will ever get their money back. However, there's a lesson for all of us here. Verify the credentials of the firm before investing. Double and triple check before trusting any portal with your hard-earned money. Well, we live in a world where cyber threats are growing by the day. From phishing scams to online frauds, no one is immune. And in a bold step to tackle this menace, the Indian government has launched a new E0FIR system. The government has said the aim is to speed up cybercrime-related probes. Under this new system, all cyber financial crime complaints valued at more than 10 lakh Indian rupees or $11,000 and registered through the 1930 helpline or the National Cybercrime Reporting Portal will automatically get converted into an FIR, post which the E0FIR will be immediately routed to the relevant territorial cybercrime police station. Complainants will then have a span of 3 days to visit the station and convert the 0 FIR into a regular FIR. India's Home Minister Amit Shah posted on X announcing the launch of this E0FIR system. Shah in his post wrote, "The new system, which will drive investigations swiftly, cracking down on cyber criminals, will soon be extended to the entire nation. The Modi government is strengthening the cybersecurity grid to build a cyber-secure Bharat." Unquote. Now, the E0FIR system is currently in its trial phase and is only available in Delhi, India's capital. The procedure for issuing FIRs electronically, regardless of territorial jurisdiction, will soon be implemented nationwide. Our next report puts the spotlight on the concept of mind over money and how a simple habit like brisk walking is gaining serious ground in boardrooms and balance sheets. Our next report telling you more.
In the modern economy, where burnout is currency and busyness is a badge of honor, one ancient habit is quietly outpacing the rest: walking. Once considered a simple mode of transport or leisure, brisk walking is emerging as a cornerstone of workplace wellness, personal wealth, and even national productivity. Forget high-tech gadgets or biohacking fads. It turns out that walking fast, at a pace of over 100 steps per minute, can deliver compound health interest with minimal investment. Scientific evidence now suggests that a daily dose of brisk walking not only trims waistlines and heart risks, but may also cut biological age by as much as 16 years. That's a serious dividend in the business of longevity. This matters because health is no longer just a personal concern, it's a bottom-line issue. Rising chronic illness is costing companies billions in lost productivity and insurance claims. But here's the twist. Replacing a leisurely 14-minute stroll with a 7-minute brisk walk could offer a 14% cut in heart disease risk. That's a micro adjustment with macro returns. Walking is also shaping workplace trends. In an age where hybrid work blurs the lines between boardroom and bedroom, walking meetings are becoming a tool for both creativity and strategy. Studies show that walking can double idea generation, making it a powerful hack for decision makers and innovators. In the search for healthier, wealthier futures, brisk walking may be the most underpriced asset in our daily portfolio. No app required, just shoes, pace, and purpose. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
In a landmark moment for Indian literature, author Bannu Mushtaq and translator Deepa Bhasti have won the Booker Prize, one of the most prestigious honors in the world of literature. And this is not just a personal triumph, but a powerful recognition of stories rooted in the complexities of identity, memory, and resistance. Bannu Mushtaq has made history as the first Kannada language author to win the International Booker Prize for translated fiction. And Deepa Bhasti, who translated the stories from Kannada, becomes the first Indian translator and the 9th female translator to win since the award's current format was introduced in 2016. This is the first time a short story collection has won the award. Heart Lamp Features collection of story written over 30 years highlights the powerful stories of women in southern India. The stories explore themes of religion, society, and politics, highlighting how they often demand unquestioning obedience from women that result in cruelty and injustice. The judging panel praised Heart Lamp for its witty, vivid, and moving style, and also for its radical translation that brings new textures to English readers. Bannu Mushtaq has made a successful literary career with 6 short story collections, an essay collection, and a poetry book. She grew up in a small Muslim neighborhood in Karnataka's Hassan. However, despite societal pressures, she broke barriers by pursuing higher education. Her first short story was published at 26. Well, the $66,000 prize money is to be divided equally between author and translator, and the International Booker Prize is given annually alongside the Booker Prize for English language fiction. Well, in a grim milestone for the planet and a stark warning from nature, massive wildfires fueled by rising temperatures and extreme drought have pushed global forest loss to record-breaking levels. From Amazon to Southeast Asia, the world's green lungs are going up in smoke. Scientists say this is not just a climate crisis, it is a tipping point. The World Resource Institute and the University of Maryland report that the world lost 6.7 million hectares of untouched tropical forest last year, and that is an 80% surge compared to 2023, an area roughly the size of Panama. And the biggest contributor, Brazil, the host nation for this year's Global Climate Summit. The country saw devastating fires reach through the Amazon, fueled by the worst drought on record in the rainforest. Brazil alone lost 2.8 million hectares. Bolivia recorded a stunning 200% increase in forest loss, overtaking the Democratic Republic of Congo for the second highest loss globally. Fires, drought, and aggressive agricultural expansion, it drove the destruction further. Beyond the tropics, Canada and Russia each lost over 5 million hectares of forest, both suffering catastrophic wildfire seasons. Conflicts in Colombia and Congo also contributed to surging deforestation, as armed groups exploited natural resources. But there were bright spots as well. Countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, and Laos actually saw double-digit decreases in forest loss thanks to stronger conservation efforts and community-led fire prevention strategies. So as world leaders gather in Belém, Brazil later this year for the next Global Climate Summit, it's time to rethink how we fund and fight for conservation. Well, there's some roaring good news from India's western state of Gujarat. In a remarkable conservation success, India's Asiatic lion population has increased by over a third to 891. And this is according to a 5-yearly consensus released today. This expansion is a testament to a successful conservation strategies that includes habitat restoration, tree augmentation and community engagement. The Asiatic lion population was at 304 in 1995, growing to 674 in 2020, and this year, in 2025, it has increased to 891. The new figure marks a rise of 217 lions, or an increase of over 32% over 5 years since the last consensus in 2020. Prime Minister Modi has credited collective efforts for the steady rise in population of Asiatic lions. Following years of concerted government efforts, the lion population is steadily rising. These majestic big cats are slightly smaller than the African cousins, and they are found only in Gujarat's sprawling Gir Wildlife Sanctuary. The 16th Asiatic lion census was conducted over 4 days from May 10th to 13th, covering 35,000 square kilometers across 11 districts of Gujarat. The exercise was carried out in 2 phases, followed by the final population count on May 12th and 13th.
Central and state government work together to allocate funds for Project Lion. Fund allocation has increased by 50% in last 3 years.
The lion may be the king of the jungle, but in Gir, it's also a symbol of national pride. With continued care and planning, India is proving that coexistence between man and beast is possible. The iconic beating retreat ceremony at the Atari border resumed in Amritsar in India, with thousands of spectators witnessing the spectacle that was discontinued over the India-Pakistan conflict earlier this month. There was high excitement among the audience as a large crowd witnessed the retreat ceremony. The highlight of the show was the BSF Women Battalion at the flag lowering ceremony. There was no handshake exercise between the border security troops and Pakistani Rangers, while international gates on both sides remained shut. The ceremony resumed after a 12-day suspension with 2 major changes. While the traditional handshake between the armed forces of the 2 nations has also been dropped, direct interaction between the 2 sides has also been curtailed. Well, with that, we slip into a very short break, but we're leaving you with Gravitas Worldview. Thanks very much for staying with us. You are watching WION The World. Stay tuned.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact